Good morning, everyone. My name is Lou Schiliro, and I am the Secretary for the Delaware Department of Safety and Homeland Security, and I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. Particularly, we do have a number of elected officials and others in the audience, and I'm sure as we go on we'll recognize more, but we're pleased to have here today the Speaker, Representative Pete Schwarzkopf, Representative Valerie Longhurst, Senator Margaret Rose Henry, Representative Charles Potter, Reverend Ty Johnson. It's good to see you here again, Reverend. Reverend Sylvester Beeman, from the Wilmington Police Department, Chief Christine Dunning, from Delaware State Police, Colonel Nate McQueen, and from the Newcastle County Police Department, Colonel Elmer Setting. We're here today for several reasons and in several ways. One, for having been given the honor and privilege to represent the first responders of our state, men and women who every day put themselves in harm's way to protect and serve each and every one of us, and having all too often to endure the tragedy that violence brings to our communities. Many of them are here today. We're here today also on behalf of all Delawareans who have an irrefutable right to be safe in our schools and universities, in their places of worship, while shopping or seeing a movie, or watching a soccer game in a park. We are here having taken a solemn oath to support and defend the Constitution and to ensure the guarantees that have been so dearly paid for are preserved and upheld for all in our state. We have all pledged that the rights of all are balanced, and that where restrictions are necessary, that they are reasonable and well structured to achieve that balance. But most importantly, we are here as parents and grandparents who have been profoundly and forever affected by the children and the heroes of Sandy Hook Elementary School. It is because of these reasons that we must come together and search for ways to lessen the prevalence of violence in our country and to stop the wanton killing of innocent people. While we fully realize there is no one magic answer, the measures you will hear about today are a step in the right direction. The one thing I am certain of, having the opportunity over the last 4 years to work with the governor, the lieutenant governor, our attorney general, and the leadership of the General Assembly, is that Delaware has been given an incredible gift of leadership. And if there is any state that can come together and stand as an example against the senseless proliferation of mass shootings, it is here and it is now. This effort will without question take honest debate and reasoned outcomes. But at the end of the day, the legacy and memory of Sandy Hook must be never again. It is now my pleasure and honor to bring to the podium the Governor of Delaware, Jack Markell.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, and I want to start by thanking Secretary Schiliro for his leadership. It has been really terrific for Delaware that we have somebody in his position who ran the New York office of the FBI. And time and time again, that leadership, that experience has been very helpful, and I want to thank you once again. I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor and the Attorney General for their work with me in putting together this package. I want to thank the legislators who are here, the Speaker of the House, Pete Schwarzkopf, Senator Margaret Rose Henry, the Majority Leader in the House, Valerie Longhurst, Representative Charles Potter, and Representative Mike Barbieri, as well as Representative Darrell Scott. I also want to thank all those from law enforcement and from the community who are here today. Today marks the 1-month anniversary of that unspeakable tragedy in Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut. It was a tragedy in which 26 people, including 20 children, lost their lives in the second deadliest school shooting in U.S. history. And in the wake of that horrific event, we've had a lot of conversations about what this tragedy means and what we need to do. I want to thank Representative Mike Ramone for being here as well. I believe that we need to do 3 things. One, we've got to improve access to treatment for young people struggling with mental illness. 2, we've got to improve school safety. And 3, we've got to improve our gun laws. I will be saying more this week in my State of the State address about the first 2 items, mental health and school safety. With respect to gun laws, we've heard a lot of ideas and a lot of proposals, but these conversations are not entirely new. In 2011, with members of the General Assembly, I proposed 4 gun safety measures. 3 of them passed. 1 of them, the gun show loophole bill, did not pass. but one bill in particular is worth mentioning. The federal background check database, it's called the National Criminal Background Check System, or NICS, contains the names of individuals who are prohibited from possessing a firearm. That database is only as good as the information in it. And Delaware was one of about 10 states at the time that did not report the names of persons prohibited from possessing a firearm for mental health reasons, and that's because our law didn't allow it. In 2011, with the terrific leadership of the prime sponsor, Valerie Longhurst, we set out to fix that. We proposed legislation to allow Delaware to report information about persons ineligible to possess a firearm for mental health reasons. And as a result of that law, and as a result of the good work of our employees at Delgis, Delaware is now second in the nation in the number of names reported on a per capita basis. But in the wake of recent events, it's clear that we need to do more. And today I'm pleased to join with Lieutenant Governor Denn and Attorney General Biden to announce our unified gun safety agenda. These proposals were developed with the help of Secretary Schiliro and other members of the law enforcement community. No one wants guns in the hands of people with ill intent. We must not arm those who would harm. Instead, we must enact stronger laws to protect our communities. And we'll talk about 5 different proposals this morning. I will discuss 2 of them. Lieutenant Governor Denn will discuss 1 of them, and Attorney General Biden will discuss 2 of them. The first is background checks for private sales. Under existing law, when a licensed dealer sells a firearm, he or she must perform a background check on the potential buyer. But when that sale does not involve a licensed dealer and occurs between private parties, no background check is required. And when it comes to the sale and transfer of firearms, we know a couple of things. We know that about 60% of all gun sales involve a licensed dealer. That means 40% do not. We also know that people who aren't allowed to possess guns still try to obtain them. In Delaware, over the past 7 years, around 3,500 applications for gun transfers or permits were denied because the applicant failed a background check. There's nothing to stop those applicants from obtaining a gun if they choose to purchase from someone other than a licensed dealer. The legislation we propose, which will be sponsored by Representative Longhurst, will require background checks for the private sale of firearms, just as they are required when a person buys a gun from a licensed dealer. A system that ignores 4 out of every 10 gun sales is a system that is broken, and we need to fix it. That's number 1. I want to thank Representative Bolden for being here, and also former Senator Sorensen. So that's number 1, the background checks on all sales. Number 2 has to do with the mandatory reporting of lost or stolen firearms. And this next proposal is designed to address the problem of missing guns. The statistics suggest this is a real problem. According to a 2002 study, from 1993 to 2002, almost 1.7 million firearms were reported stolen nationwide. Of that number, over 1 million remained missing as of the time of the study. And in Delaware, even though we don't have a mandatory reporting law for citizens, almost 300 guns were reported stolen in 2012 alone. Now, under current law, if a person owns a firearm and it gets lost or stolen, they're not required to report that loss to the police. Now, why is that a problem? Say a police officer recovers a gun at a crime scene and is able to trace it to its original owner. The officer asks the owner how his gun or her gun ended up at a crime scene, and the owner says, "Oh, I lost that gun months ago." Several things could be happening. 1, the owner could be telling the truth, he did lose a gun. But what law enforcement tells us is that sometimes the owner is not telling the truth. Maybe he sold the gun to someone who was ineligible to buy one himself. That's known as a straw purchase. And maybe that person used the gun to commit a crime. The point is, without mandatory reporting, there's very little that the police can do when an owner says, "I lost my gun," even if they suspect the owner really sold it to a criminal. This bill is simple. It would require that an owner report his or her lost or stolen firearm within 48 hours of discovering that it's missing. 7 other states in the District of Columbia require reporting of lost or stolen firearms, and Delaware should follow suit. And I'm pleased to announce that Senator Margaret Rose Henry will be the prime sponsor of this bill. Now, Lieutenant Governor Denn and Attorney General Biden will describe the remaining proposals. But before they do so, I want to take a moment to talk about the tone of the debates that are sure to follow. Now, these are difficult issues, and they arouse a high level of passion on all sides. I think even when we disagree with each other's positions in these debates, I can tell you that nobody from my administration is going to question the intentions of the people who have opposing views. I respect the Second Amendment, but the measures that we propose today are entirely constitutional. So I expect a robust debate, but I believe this is not a debate about the Second Amendment. That said, there's a parallel discussion in Washington on these very issues, and it's my hope that we in Delaware can show our friends in Washington that we can disagree without being disagreeable, maybe even find some common ground to address what is one of the most difficult issues of our time. With that, I would like to turn it over to the Lieutenant Governor, and then after him to Attorney General Biden.
Good morning, everyone. About 2 hours ago, I dropped my son off at his elementary school. I drive him there every day, and most mornings I just drop him off at the front door. But today he needed some help carrying something to class, so I went into to the school, walked down to his class with him, and as I was walking out and thinking about this announcement that we were making today, seeing the children walking down the hall to an assembly and all of the excitement that accompanies the beginning of every elementary school day, I really could not help but be reminded of Sandy Hook, and it was really a stark reminder to me of the urgency of what we are announcing today and of the critical importance of us making some progress on this issue. This is about the security of our kids and of our families, and the time has really come to make some forward progress. I want to pick up where the governor left off with respect to two important points. First, there really is a real opportunity in Delaware to make progress on this important issue that has just proven intractable in other states and in Washington, because we have a history here in Delaware of listening to each other and working together towards practical solutions. And you can see right on the front pages of today's newspaper that elsewhere, with the exception of the vice president who's actually doing the right thing and listening to people, that everyone's gone back to their respective corners and everyone is really returning to the familiar talking points. We're here to get something done to make this state safer and not to win debating points. And I hope that those who are interested in this issue in Delaware come to that discussion with the same attitude. Second important point, we know, as the governor said, that gun violence in Delaware and elsewhere is not just about guns, that there is an important mental health aspect as well. And the state's made a number of important strides with respect to child mental health over the last few years, and as the governor said, he's going to have some important new proposals that he'll be describing later this week. We realize that this issue is complex, but we will not bury our heads in the sand and pretend that gun violence has nothing to do with guns. The governor discussed the first two bills. The third bill that we're going to be pursuing would regulate large capacity magazines. A magazine is the device that feeds a firearm ammunition, and a large capacity magazine is a magazine that allows a firearm to shoot an unusually large number of bullets without the shooter stopping to reload. According to a report from the Citizens Crime Commission of New York, there have been 30 mass shootings in the United States over the last 40 years. Each of them has been unique, and each has had its own horrific details. But one thing has been consistent. The shooter in each and every one of these mass shootings has used a large capacity magazine. It is the essential piece of equipment for a criminal who wants to shoot a lot of people. Our law enforcement community tells us that in any incident where a criminal is seeking to shoot multiple people, a critical point in the incident comes when the criminal has to stop to reload his gun. And large capacity magazines prevent those reloading moments and allow a criminal to keep shooting and shooting, as happened in Sandy Hook and so many other incidents. The legislation that we're going to propose, which will be sponsored by Representative Mitchell and Senator Peterson and a number of their colleagues, would prevent the manufacture, sale, offer for sale, purchase, receipt, transfer, or delivery of any large capacity magazine in Delaware. It would also ban the possession of large capacity magazines in public places. We will propose to define large capacity magazine based upon the experience of other states that have successfully regulated them, to mean a magazine with the capacity to accept more than 10 rounds for a handgun or 5 rounds for a rifle or shotgun. This proposed law would not apply to law enforcement officers or members of the military acting within the scopes of their jobs, and it would not apply to licensed dealers who are in the business of selling to law enforcement or military, working in the scopes of their jobs. And it would not require any current owner of a large capacity magazine to turn it in, as long as they didn't have it in public. One of the arguments that's sometimes made about regulating weapons is that only law-abiding citizens will be affected by the law. But we have objective and fairly new evidence that regulating large capacity magazines does in fact help keep them away from criminals. Just last week, the Washington Post released a study that showed a direct correlation between the 1994 federal assault weapons ban, which included large capacity magazines, and the number of large capacity magazines that were found on guns that were confiscated by law enforcement in the state of Virginia as a result of criminal investigations. The percentage of confiscated guns with large capacity magazines started dropping in 1998, 4 years after the federal ban started, hit a low of 9%, and then when the federal ban expired in 2004, the percentage started going back up again, all the way back up to 20%. So the bottom line is that the evidence we have is that regulating large capacity magazine does in fact keep a lot of them away from criminals' guns, and that is a good thing. We think that this is a thoughtful and practical way to deal with this issue. And as I mentioned earlier, as we introduce this specific bill and the others, we're open to hearing from responsible gun owners about how we can refine them to make them more practical and effective. But doing nothing is not an option. And I am grateful to everyone who has joined us here today to make sure that our public policy makers hear loud and strong that Delawareans want a safe state with responsible regulation of weapons. Our focus will continue to be keeping guns away from dangerous people and protecting victims from the weapons most likely to be used illegally. And now I'd like to turn things over to my friend, the Attorney General, who's going to discuss two other bills that are critical to this effort.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Denn. And Governor, I'd like to echo your words. Today's a day to remember the survivors and the children taken from us a month ago. It's also a day to remember people like Jim Brady, who's a Delawarean, who's led the fight to have efforts in America to protect people from having things happen to them, what happened to him. It's a day to remember the students at Virginia Tech. It's a day to remember the people in the movie theater in Colorado. And to come up with and come together with a sensible approach about how to deal with violence. And like the governor and lieutenant governor, this is one pillar of three pillars of dealing with a comprehensive approach to protecting our children and ending gun violence. This deals with weapons and firearms. I look forward to the governor's State of the State, where we'll talk about issues having to do with mental health, as well as how we protect our schools and whether that be through SROs or other mechanisms to do so. I'll have more to say on both of those as well, but not till the governor has spoken on it. The two bills that I want to round out this five-part proposal with are, number one, an assault weapons ban, which is basically the mirror of what the lieutenant governor just talked about. In 1994, as many of you know, Congress passed a federal assault weapons ban that expired in 2004. The bill would ban the proposed bill here in Delaware would ban the sale, transfer, and possession of automatic and semi-automatic weapons that were designed for military use and equipped with military features. These weapons were designed for battle and simply have no place on our streets. This is a very complex piece of legislation that we're still working on and work with the General Assembly to make sure we get it before the General Assembly and passed. You know, I wear a different uniform, and the assault weapon and military-style weapon that is assigned to me resides in an armory under lock and key, because it's needed only for one place, and that is Iraq or Afghanistan, or where the Commander-in-Chief, this Commander-in-Chief of the Delaware National Guard, or the Commander-in-Chief of our United States Armed Forces, sends soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. These are weapons of mass destruction that are meant for battle, that some in this room, their sons and daughters, are armed with as they head to Afghanistan as we speak, Colonel. These are the weapons they need to do their jobs when they're in uniform, protecting our interests around the world and here domestically. That's the place for them, and that's why the assault weapons ban, which will be a fight, This will not be a Democrats versus Republicans issue. This will be people who believe that assault weapons simply don't have a place in our society other than for battle, and those who think that it infringes upon the constitutional right to bear arms. I stand here before you saying it does not infringe upon the Second Amendment, which I strongly believe in. and it's not inconsistent. I'll say and speak not like a lawyer. It is consistent with the Heller case, the recent Supreme Court case on the Second Amendment. So I look forward to working with the General Assembly on what will be a fight. Of the 5 things we're talking about, this will be the big fight. I stand with you to get this done, but let's do it with our eyes wide open. That will be a Herculean undertaking. The 5th part of this package is a bill that would ban the possession of firearms within 1,000 feet of a school, and will be sponsored by Representative Scott of Dover and a former member of the Capital School District Board. This is an issue that is close and dear to the hearts of many, but especially so for Representative Scott. We need to do more to protect our students, especially when there's a discussion about arming more people in our schools. Again, this will be a fight as well. This bill will help to ensure the safety of our children in our schools. By outlawing the possession of a firearm in close proximity to a school, we will enable law enforcement who stand behind me and the governor and lieutenant governor to interdict those individuals who knowingly possess firearms and do so near buildings and schoolyards. The purpose of this law is to create a safe school zone where children are secure, where parents can have peace, as the lieutenant governor walked his son to school this morning, and peace of mind that upon leaving them this morning, that they will not be subjected to gun violence, and where teachers, when my mom served for many years in the public school system in this state, where teachers can go on about their important task of educating their children without the fear of violence. It is important to note that this law is not intended to restrict the right of law-abiding citizens to own their guns and exercise their constitutional right, nor is it intended to restrict those law-abiding citizens who reside near schools, as the law specifically exempts them from its prohibitions while the guns are on their property. The law, likewise, is not intended to inhibit those individuals who possess concealed weapons permits from carrying firearms in conformity with these permits. I started my career as a lawyer in 1995 as a junior staffer in the U.S. Department of Justice, helping to implement for then Attorney General Janet Reno and then President Bill Clinton the Brady Law. And to put a final note on this, the Brady Law seems to make eminent sense as we stand here nearly 20 years later. But as the governor and lieutenant governor and Secretary Schiliro well knows, just that sensible piece of legislation imposing at first the interim provisions of the Brady Law was a 5-day waiting period, which then was phased into an instant check system now known as the NICS system, to enforce the 1968 Gun Control Act, which at the time prohibited 8 categories of people from possessing firearms, the most obvious one being those that are convicted felons. That was a huge fight. The huge fight was that those that opposed the instant check system said, convicted felons aren't going to be so dumb to go purchase a firearm at Walmart or at a federal firearms licensee. How could they be so stupid to do so? And as the governor referenced, and as you know, it bears repeating to the extent he didn't or did, 2 million people later have been stopped. 2 million people later have been stopped by the Brady Law from illegally possessing firearms. 48% of those who have gone to purchase firearms that have been stopped, of those 2 million, 48%, nearly 1 million people have been convicted felons who walk into a federal firearms licensee, a Walmart, Smyrna Gun Shop, Miller's, walk in as a convicted felon and try to possess and buy a firearm. 16% have been fugitives from justice, and many, many more those with prohibitions from a mental perspective, which would be having been committed or adjudicated so. This works, and I applaud the governor for pursuing the universal background check. I think it is a central element of this 5-part package that we know saves lives, and we know makes sense, and we know the American people and the citizens of this state support. I urge the General Assembly to get this done. It would be essential to protecting our citizens and, most importantly, our children. Thank you very much.
Okay, First, I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General. You know, a lot of states, when you have people from 3 different offices, all of them have to run, you might find they insist on 3 separate press conferences and overlapping bills and the like, and I very much want to thank them both for working together so we can put a unified package before you. I also want to thank, from my office, Andy Lipstone, who has worked tirelessly, along with Sean Barney, to put this package together. And I know that Lieutenant Governor and Attorney General have had people in their offices work as well. I wanted to give the legislators who are here an opportunity to say anything if you would like. Don't feel like you have to, but we're more than happy to do so. So why don't we go from one end of the table down to the other. All right, just because you're giving me that look, I'm going to start with Stephanie over here. Anything you want to add?
I just would hope that you would consider the different municipalities and the types of crimes that are in different municipalities. For example, the city of Wilmington and the rating that we got as a result of the number of shootings in our neighborhoods, things of that nature. And I would just hope that that this will go through, and that maybe that some input will be given to the city of Wilmington as well as the municipalities.
All right, and thanks for your support of this. Mike?
Governor, thank you for having this. I think it's a big issue, and it's an issue that Delaware does do things different, and I'm here trying to show that we all need to listen, we need to have a solution. We have a big problem. I'm very grateful that there's so many colleagues here that are actually becoming part of the solution as opposed to adding to the problem, and there's a lot of moving parts. So thank you for allowing us to be part of this, and thank you for all of you for together working on a problem in Delaware that hopefully we can solve, because watching children die like that is horrific and something that I never ever want to have to see happen in our state.
Thank you.
It's encouraging to see Mike sitting next to me to show that we've got people from both sides of the aisle that are very interested in addressing this issue. I think it's very, very important. And I think we can find commonality in these proposals. One, hopefully we all agree that we want safe environments for our children to go to school. And that providing a perimeter of safety that allows them to go in, play in the playground, and feel safe, not only for the children, students, the teachers, and the staff, is critically important. So hopefully we can put those common elements together and work together to pass this legislation.
Thanks. And for those of you in the back, we've heard from Representative Bolden, Representative Ramon, and Representative Scott, Senator Margaret Rose Henry.
Thank you, Governor. I'm really pleased and honored to sponsor the legislation having to do with stolen guns, because that's really a big, big piece of how crime is committed. People steal weapons. They're not able to buy them legally. So I think if we can remove some of the guns, if we know that guns have been stolen, and we can inform law enforcement, they can be on the lookout for them, hopefully we can save lives. But also, if gun owners tell us that guns have been stolen, then it protects their rights too, because then we know they were not involved in the crime. So I'm very excited to be able to sponsor this piece of legislation.
Thank you for your support. Mr. Speaker?
I'm here to support what we're doing. This is not an issue of we're taking guns away from people and taking them out of their household, which is the number one argument that we're going to hear. Number two, it's a common sense approach to the problems of the day. Number three, I keep hearing from some people that the law-abiding citizen, that we're going to be taking guns away from. Keep in mind that almost every one of these shooters and all these incidents were law-abiding citizens until they pulled the trigger the first time. This has nothing to do with trying to take guns away from law-abiding citizens. This has everything to do with protecting our children, protecting the public. I call upon the men and women in uniform standing here. I'm a retired Delaware State police officer. I will tell you that your colleagues, some of your colleagues will be opposed to what we're trying to do here today, which makes absolutely no sense to me. And the reason I say that is because I'm getting some comments and some emails, both in favor and against, from the public, not as much as I am getting from some of my brethren that say, don't change the gun laws, don't do this, which makes absolutely no sense. We dress you up, we train you, we put you in a bulletproof vest to help protect your life, and then we're going to allow the bad guys to have better weapons than what you have and have bullets and things like that will defeat your best. It makes no sense. You guys need to get the message out to everybody. This is out there to help protect you as well. So, I want to thank you for giving me just put there to get on my soapbox. And I will stand in support of these measures.
Thank you. Representative Longhurst.
Thank you, Governor. I just want to commend all of you up front, from the police officers, the city of Wilmington, the county, and the state, Lieutenant Governor Denn, Beau Biden. I think everybody can see in this room, there's a big interest in solving this issue when you have this many people who are leaders in the community stepping forward and making this decision to go forward. It will be a difficult task. As Beau said, it is going to be a challenge in the General Assembly. We have 62 people, and we have to get that message across. I think the first step is explaining the bills and getting them out there. I'm honored to be a part of the background check. I did the next program, as you said earlier, and this is a continuation of that. As we have those challenges, they will be challenges, but I think that I'm very optimistic that we will succeed this time around.
Thank you. Representative Potter.
Yes, sir, Governor. I'm in total support of the proposed legislation, and weapons of mass destruction has no place on our streets. We've got to protect all the people, and I just hope that we incorporate in the legislation that everyone must have a release from their doctor to get it done.
Representative Barbieri.
Thank you, Governor. I'd like to praise all of you for taking these bold steps. I think they're critical. The argument is that guns don't kill people, people do, and the truth is that the gun is the mechanism to use. The more that we can do to restrict people from having guns, especially those who shouldn't be having guns, the better off we'll be. And I have to agree completely with the Attorney General. There's absolutely no reason for an assault weapon to be purchased and to be used. It's not a support. It's a weapon of mass destruction. So I will support and aggressively pursue any of these.
All right, I want to thank the legislators. We appreciate your support. We'll have to continue to work together. Again, thank Secretary Schiliro for your leadership, Lieutenant Governor, and our Attorney General. To all of those behind me in uniform and throughout the room, thank you. And to members of the community, very much appreciated. For members of the press, we'll be sticking around, so we will be available to you for a while here, and appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you very much.